Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
When your picture pops up, it's so funny. You're muted. Somehow you got muted.
I got muted again. I have it on the space bar
Oh,
unmute. So now I'm here.
I hate having to let people in. I wish that I could figure out why I can't just have them come in. It's funny.
I'm sure there's some way to set it up. I personally don't know,
I
but
know it is, and it's been like a couple of weeks,
Mm,
and still can't figure it out.
mm.
So we have two people connecting. Krista's coming in. Hello. I have the Amalfi Coast behind me. I put that up as a joke the other day, and then I haven't taken it down because I like it.
Why not?
Why not? Okay. I'm just going to wait a little bit and see who pops in. And I thought I had a video, and I'm kind of bummed that I can't find it. So I'm going to try to find that. Oh, oops. Well, it's 7:21. Oh, Britta, there. See, that's why I feel bad. I look away when somebody comes in. Well, might as well start, right? Um, I want to do. I gotta put my glasses back on. Oh, I want to make sure that everybody knows that there's a discussion because I only see a couple people who have put up comments for the discussion on those articles, and I obviously want people to add to the discussion because I think, I mean, so far there's a couple people, but I really like everything people have been thinking about, and I think, hold on, let me share my screen. So it's in last week's, hold on, save this. Okay, it's in last week's module. Do you guys look at it at Canvas and module view or like to do view? It's interesting to hear how people look at it, or maybe assignments. Anyway, I look at it in modules. Um, but it's in week 3 and it's obviously the myth of whiteness in classical sculpture. And I think I I'm wondering if I made a mistake with the chapters. I'm looking at this now. The ancient world, yeah, okay. So ancient world is chapter 1 and then chapter 2. So are we in the right place chapter wise? Yeah, I think we're fine. We're fine. So the myth of whiteness in classical sculpture. If anybody feels like commenting on that now, we can, but or you can save it for your um, discussion. And then the erasing history, the iconoclasm. I think those are really two important articles to read, especially um, if you haven't really thought about it or if you didn't know. Um, and then I haven't even looked at the quiz yet, so I need to do that. I'm using quizzes as sort of like a review, a learning, try it until you get it kind of thing, like just to kind of go back and just review what we've learned. But so tonight I want to talk about the a little bit about Egypt, and I really encourage you guys to, if you're, have never taken any ancient history or delved into it. I mean, there's just so much, and it's it's so fascinating and amazing that I feel like I am just like having to gloss over it because I'm really trying to get to the furniture part of it, and the art part of it and the architecture part of it. But just all of the things that happened and the amazing, amazing things that were preserved. Um, I really cannot wait to go to Cairo. Like I've never been and I would love to go. And if anybody has been, I would love to hear about it. I just think it would be, there's just so much there. But anyway, we can start with the, oh, whoops. I always do that share when I really mean to present. We kind of a lot of slides. We may not make it through all of them, but we might. Um, so I want to start with um, the timeline. I think it's good to kind of have this perspective on the timeline. So we're in ancient um, history. So we're just a little bit a ways from Jericho that we talked about last week. And now, of course, we're in Northern Africa. We're in Egypt here, and a king named King Narmer unified Upper and Lower Egypt, and that's important because in interior design and in decoration, there's some um, motifs that illustrate that unification, and those motifs um, are the lotus and the papyrus. So keep that kind of stuff in mind because we'll talk about that. And then and those are used in wall decorations and in decorations on furniture and everywhere. So then 2000 to 1000 BCE, Middle and New Kingdoms thrive. So it's the Middle, New, and Old. And um, Tutankhamun, or as some people like to call it, King Tut, he reigned in 1333. And then temples and palaces are built using the post and lintel construction. And that's specific to you because the posts and lintels are when you use when you use horizontals and equally strong verticals to hold up a building, as opposed to like arches or anything like that. It's just a very it's also kind of trabeated, and it's just a very straightforward way of building. Very common even now. Um, and oops. And then then we move into the Aegean period, and we are Greece, and then Etruscans move into Italy, and not much is known about the Etruscans because they still haven't figured out the language and how to translate that language. Um, but they are a sophisticated culture. Um, and then we're into the Roman Empire, and then we go into the Middle Ages. So it all just happens really fast. So the 3000 to the Common Area, which is the birth of Christ. So what kind of advances are there? Well, there's writing. So this is cuneiform writing, and basically it was done with a tool, like almost like a stick with a flat writing end, and it was used in like soft clay, and these kind of markings were made into the clay, and they used these tablets to document daily life. Lists were very common, documenting just anything that happened in daily life, like habits, traditions, like things that you owned, probably bills and accounting of like who owed who. Um, and then also some more advances are very advanced burial and funerary practices, and um, bodies were able to be preserved really well, and obviously furniture. And then just a lot of advances in just engineering and building, and we've all seen pictures of the pyramids, just huge amounts of community involvement, cooperation, um, and slaves too. So the the owning of people, the owning of high value items, indicated status. And so the first pyramids are actually in Saqqara, um, which is just a little bit away actually from the Great Pyramids at Giza. So Saqqara's up here. And so this was third dynasty. And then these were made, this is the stepped pyramid. So this is one of the pyramids. And these were made of sandstone, but really poor quality. A lot of these pyramids in this whole area have really degraded, in the passage of time. So it's sandstone, not high quality. Um, so, I mean, these are fascinating. Just reading things about the Saqqara pyramids, really fascinating. And there's a museum there as well that has a lot of really great things that were preserved, furniture and artifacts. Um, and then here's the Great Pyramids, which we've probably seen this picture or a version of this picture. We have the Sphinx guarding. So that's a motif, and I'm going to keep talking about motifs, and we're going to see them again and again, and just a repeated imagery, and design elements. So the Sphinx is guards, and I think maybe we all know, but maybe we don't. The Great Pyramids were built to honor and to create an afterlife and to get closer to Ka, or the eternal spirit, and to convey the culture and the status. And there were, certain hierarchies. Not everybody got to be in the Great Pyramid. Um, and So the three pyramids are Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. So these are made of limestone actually, and you can kind of see like a view of one of they're like skinny little passageways, getting into that pyramid. And then, so the largest Egyptian pyramid, for Khufu, you've probably heard Cheops before too. It's an interchangeable name. And it was built around 2530 BCE. It's 146 meters or 481 feet. And the base length is more than 750 feet per side. So amazingly huge. Um, the interiors of these tombs, I always kind of get like the chills when I see these scenes and these pictures because it's just so amazing to me, how well preserved and how colorful and just how detailed the drawings are about what they were doing and showing how they were doing it and what they may have looked like. Um, so this is a tomb of Ramses narrating the life and the afterlife. And so what was preserved there were jars of food and wine and jewelry, clothing. And sometimes they would have like huge pieces like boats and chariots because you might need that in the afterlife. Um, and just amazing, amazing stuff. So I encourage you to go look at more if you want to learn more about it. But so my because my purpose here is to kind of give you a mindset of what they were thinking about and what these structures meant to them, and why they're imbued with so much ceremony, importance, spirituality. Um, so this is called a hypostyle hall, and it's basically a hall of columns. And so what you've probably read in the textbook, or maybe you've heard, is that they were really good at making a strong building, and they over-engineered it, so it was really way overbuilt. But it's just amazing. I mean, look how tiny, tiny, tiny. Um, Here, let me give you the full screen. Tiny these, wait. Anyway, I think you can see it. I want you to view it full screen. Oh, there it is. Okay, not quite as big as I wanted, but so look how tiny these people look. These, I mean, the diameter probably has to be at least like 10 feet in diameter, you know, give or take. Um, and then all of these were put together like like a modular format using a system of very large pulleys. So like let's just say this base piece would be put in, then this piece would be put in, and then they were locked in with joints. And but each piece had all kinds of relief carvings that communicated. I mean, look, you can see a cow. Um, I mean, you can see all kinds of scenes. I'm sure it's just amazing to look around and to understand what things were being communicated on these. But you'll see the, the columns will never leave us. We will always have columns. This is basically, where that all comes from. The post and lintel idea and way of building structure. And but what you'll see as we move forward into architecture history, or you'll see the columns slim down a little bit because there's some understanding of maybe the calculations that what you really need, and also proportion, like a little bit more human size, although this is just awesome to look at. So temples were basically, if you think about it this way, it's like they wanted you to walk through time. And this probably would give you that feeling. You are walking through time, and you're walking through these massive columns, and it's basically gateways into the temple represent the creation and all the passage of time. So the floor would rise until you would reach the sanctuary. And then the columns are decorated with the lotus and the papyrus and palm plants, and then representing Upper Lower Egypt and the whole environment. Oops. Um, So they were good at sophisticated at city planning, and I think it's really interesting that they did separate people by class or social status. Those homes, here's sort of a cutaway representation of what those homes were built of, and then what they probably looked like, because um, they have found some foundations, but most of the homes just, you know, were completely do not survive. And they did decorative painting inside the houses, probably on the walls and the columns, and they found evidence of that. And just super simple furnishings. We'll talk about stools a lot, very popular item, easy to make, easy to bring to a friend's house, and you know, really didn't need a lot of furniture because sitting on the floor and eating and also just having simple furniture was enough. Didn't even really sleep on beds, maybe slept on a mat. Um, and then here's some important motifs. So motifs they are repeating visual patterns that are used in decoration, whether on furniture or on architecture. Um, Most of the time, it is based in the natural world, in nature, and then so they were polytheistic, and then they everything was very colorful. They really and I think a lot of periods have this, but they just have a fear of negative space. There's really not a part that isn't decorated, um, even in furniture. And so used a lot of color to fill in where there was no other decoration. Um, and so can go through a couple of these. So you'll see. So this is the papyrus image. The lotus bud is always kind of shown with like a pointed, almost like an arrowhead. Um, the palmette, um, and then over here, the rosettes, and a lot of these stay with us throughout time, and the meanings sort of change. The rosette is when Mesopotamia. Um, I'll think about that. It's when it was when two cultures merged, like a unification. Um, the guilloche is almost like a wave pattern, but it's almost like a braided wave pattern. And then you've got some spiral waves and rosettes. The spiral wave is the Nile, the rushing river of the Nile. Let's see. We'll get to the fret in a little bit. So here's some more spiral, here's some more rosettes, and a lot of mixing of motifs and putting them together. But this kind of stuff, kind of in a freeze band, we'll continue to see throughout architecture, especially on the outsides of buildings, and maybe like a top rail of a chair or something like that, or case pieces that have kind of architectural elements, friezes, cornices, things like that. So we'll see a lot of those kind of like decorative um, things, which I think is really cool because it helps you remember Egyptian, remember Greek, and Roman. And then imagery that you see a lot in it, Egyptian pieces. And then also you see it coming back when because Napoleon went and excavated and found all of this amazing no, he excavated Pompeii. But anyway, it all became very hot Um, so let's see. We talked about lotus, papyrus. Oh, the rose is economic trade between cultures, so it's Mesopotamia. And then falcon or the hawk was Horus, the sky god. And then the griffin and the sphinx um, showed or represented protection. And then the ankh is like a creation motif symbol, like showing like the womb. Um, Ra is the supreme being, and Osiris is god of the underworld, and Anubis, shown here, sort of the deity or the mummification, preserving for the afterlife. And then here's more decorative motifs. Um, Now, and I think of, if you think back at the article about the myth of whiteness, and if this somehow were just maybe just a relief sculpture and not a colorful, um, I guess, fresco or painting, how it would change, or sometimes I think about that, like what would my feelings be? I'm used to seeing the, Egyptian hieroglyphics and paintings on the wall as brightly colored. And I'm I always wonder what it would be like if I, saw it in just a very like pale non-color, just a sort of a relief, if I would think about them as having less or more of a spirit or personality or something like that. Um, because I sometimes think of classical without color, meaning like especially neoclassical. I think of it as sort of a cipher, like a sort of a kind of a vacuum, or just uh, like a like it doesn't really have a personality. It's almost like an ideal. And maybe it's because I know what happened. Um, it it's like it's the sculpturally, I think it's pretty, and it's sometimes a reason why I tell clients, if they have a lot of like dark woodwork that's very has a lot of profiles to it. Sometimes you go into somebody's house and it's like a really old house, and they've got like all this crown molding, and they've got all this like mirrors that are like carved and things like that, and it's like a kind of like a not a pretty colored wood. um, and they're like, what do I do with it? I don't want to do anything to the period. I want to preserve it. And I'll say, well, just paint it out, and then it'll become sculptural, and you'll notice it as sculpture, not so much this color wood with this color stain on it. It's something, sculptural. So, and that's, I guess, how I think of it. But I don't think of I would think this, to me, would lack sort of a this shows, to me, like a mood, a an energy, um, like a more specific personality. Anyway, that's just my thought. Um, so Egyptian furniture. So stools of all kinds. Now we'll go over here to the right, because this was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. And this is a really amazing. So this is like a double cove. So it's got a dip here and it's got a dip on the side, and so it's double coved. And if somebody were to sit in it, they would have put a cushion. But I mean, there's all this, beautiful um carvings, and it's probably some sort of reeds, and it's gilded, and it's intertwined lotus and papyrus stems, so it's showing the unification between the two, low upper and lower. And then it's got these really nice like little paws, and then with the drum feet. And the reason they raised it off the floor like that with the drum is just to keep it dry and clean, and things like that. But then it became a design choice. Um, so then, this is on one end of the spectrum, and then this is, probably it's just a drawing of like a fairly nice folding stool that would have fabric or leather stretched across the top. So it's a little bit more expensive because the fabric or the leather, and it's just like slightly higher sort of artisanal skill that it would take. Um, and then this is just, a nice little mortise and tenon stool, and you can see the joinery, which to me looks really great, but it's a very humble thing, and it wouldn't have been used for anybody of really really high um status. But stools, were and still are super useful. um so then, if we think about chairs and we think about people with status, people with high status would be the only ones that would ever even own a chair like this or allowed to sit in a chair like this. And if you think about, in the book, they use the example. I think it's interesting. We still have that example of, if you have a formal dining room, the chairs on the end have the arms, but the chairs on the sides, for the guests, do not have arms. So it's denoting like the status of that, group of people, or the change in status. And then this is a throne as well, wrapped in gold and silver leaf, decorated with scenes, and then with semi-precious stones even embedded, and probably for the eyes, you know here of the probably the panthers. um and then this is a single cove seat, also from his tomb, and there's a falcon with wings outspread, and then the disc representing Ra. So it's the power of the throne, and so I mean, just all kinds of super intricate designs here. So at this point, in terms of like the structure, they were using the techniques of the mortise and tenon, which I showed you with that little stool, and then doweled legs, which I'll show you an illustration of that. And then there's a slight back pitch to these chairs. It's hard to see them here, but basically that was accomplished by having the legs in the back shorter than the legs in the front. Um, and then both of these were from Queen Hetepheres, and these are reproduced. I actually have a video. We can watch that. Oh, we can look at that. Or maybe I'll post that so we can everybody can watch it. And so the little feet are on the drums, and then basically the motifs, this is all like gold leaf and then lotus flowers. So it's purity, enlightenment, self regeneration for the afterlife. Here's a really interesting piece that was in Tutankhamun's tomb. So chests and case goods are really important, from now until forever. Everybody wants a place to hold their stuff. So this was one of the chests that was in his tomb, and this is just covered with images of the young king um, in battle. So you've got him in his chariot with his his huge horse. He has the biggest horse, but then he's got this massive army behind him, and they are just conquering, this whole pile of people over here. And then it's just like, checkerboard pattern, rosette pattern. It looks like we've got more like chevron, repeating. chevron here, and then this had the two knobs, and then you'd use a bit of string or some sort of rope and wrap it around in a figure eight, and then you would seal it with wax so that nobody could touch it or disturb the contents. Um, and then here is an image of like the mortise and tenon, and then here's the dowel construction. So you've got these cylindrical pieces that go in, and then they tighten tighten the edges. And then this is just a rectangular piece that fits into another rectangular piece. And then this is a painted papyrus with scenes from inside an ancient tomb. And then these women are seated on a chair, some chairs, and they're being served basically a whole banquet. And notice how they're sitting, and these other ladies who are serving them are standing. And then notice their chairs, how high their chairs are, and they have footstools. But then they also have some structure in these chairs that look like stretchers, and stretchers are often used, and they'll continue to be used in different furniture styles. And then pottery was like jars and jars of different glass pottery, stone pottery, ceramic were used. And these are called canopic jars, which basically would hold the preserved organs of the person whose tomb it was, because they would need those later. Um, and they have really amazing like glass methods of making glass, or they could blow the glass, but they could also put glass around something that could then be dug out, like um, clay or even animal dung. Just put the glass around it and then dig out the hard insides to create the vessel. And now we're in Greece. Okay, so trabeated, like we talked about before, post and lintel. Um, and so strong horizontal elements are held up by strong vertical elements with large spaces between them. And you notice these these columns are a little smaller. They're big at the top or big at the bottom, and they taper as they go to the top, which is like a lovely visual um, image. And they were adept at planning cities, and they had temples also built to multiple gods and goddesses, and introduced a more democratic government. And yet um, people had different status, and some people owned property. And then this is just an example of a temple floor plan. Really, really interesting. You walk up the stylobate, which is where the first, um, I'm sorry, columns are on top of the stylobate. And then, and then you would walk in, and you would go past the first two rows of columns and into the inside of the temple, and then to the end, which would mirror nearly mirror the front side. And so what's interesting is the symmetry. If you folded it in half, they would mirror each other, and if you folded it in half on the vertical, um, they would mirror each other. So just like a very like satisfying design. And then here we'll do an activity too, which I'll give you this. But here's the parts of the temple, and especially the facade and how the columns would look. And we'll learn about the different columns. This one um, is an Ionic column, and with the scrolls, and then this is a Doric column. And there's also a Corinthian column, which at the top has very beautiful like leaves sort of encircling it.
Like acacia
And
leaves, isn't it?
the what?
I think they're acacia leaves. Right?
Ac- Um, acacia or acanthus.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe campus.
I know
Yeah,
there's
it
so
looks like.
many like lotus, papyrus, acanthus.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so we'll look at those, and then there are other pyramid. I'm sorry, not pyramid. There are other column types, um, which are called caryatids, and these are statues of women who are actually um, columns. And this is called the Porch of the Caryatids, which I think is very beautiful. So this style of column you'll keep seeing again and again. And so Greek architecture, their motifs, um, we see a lot of geometric and abstracted geometric, and we'll see plants, and we'll also see some, animal, mythical, similar to a bit similar to the Egyptian style, um, like this griffin here, um, and then so we've got the antefix with the palmette, and then the anthemion. And then you've got some other combinations, palmette and honeysuckle, leaf and vine patterns. And then you see this kind of entablature that has like a bowl, and then it has a rosette, and it has another flower motif. And then this is the fret motif, and it is commonly also referred to as the Greek key, which you you will see a lot. You'll see that on friezes, on the outside of a building, on the facade of a building, or sometimes you'll see it in crown molding inside, very grand homes or buildings. Oh, whoops. So, sorry, that slide's weird. So the Egyptians had better ways, by accident, I think, better ways of preserving because of their climate. Their climate is just more arid, and they also were buried, in tombs. So their furniture survived better. The Greek furniture really did not. So it's very scarce. So what has been found and what imagery has been found are stools like the X base or the folding, side chairs with meaning chairs with no arms. So that's always what side chair means. And then so I'll show you the klezmos chair. And then armchairs or thronos. And then very popular, the ever popular chest to hold your personal and your special belongings. Obviously, the more affluent you were, the more grand items that you could afford. So then this is the klezmos chair, and they're still around. Um, Now, the thing that is a problem are these saber legs, which are gorgeous but are so delicate. In fact, I worked for a interior design company when I lived in DC, and we were furnishing the office of this lawyer who, I mean, he had a lot of money to spend on this office, and he bought this very expensive conference table. It was probably 12 $20,000 probably. And then the chairs were klezmos style chairs, and they were actually made of horn. And each chair was $4,000, and they were gorgeous. I don't know, he had 6 or 8 or something like that around this conference table. And one day, um, someone, came in who was like a big guy and sat in it and broke it. And he's lucky he didn't like hurt himself too. I don't think he did. Um, but broke the chair, and they had to, try to actually furniture company ended up able to fix it. But then, do you want to put that out and have people sit in it? I'd be like, this is the one that people don't sit in. This is the one that you just look at. But you notice in this relief sculpture, this funeral stele, which probably was painted, right? Notice that Clismo style, the saber legs. So these are called saber legs, and we're going to see these again. So remember the saber legs. This is a more modern form of that chair. And, you notice you see the fret, you see the Greek key, you see the lyre in the splat. It's very beautiful. And you see probably a rosette here, right at the top of that. And then, so notice here, this is basically a Klein, and he is reclined on the Klein, right? So this is his servant. He's asking for something here. He might be some like very famous warrior because he's got this sort of image over here. And then so he's on this Klein, and it's got these like really beautiful, interesting detail with the turned leg. And if you notice here, there's some furniture with a decorative sort of turned leg. And over here, this woman is doing some sort of domestic work, and she's sitting on something with a turned leg too. So this was common, and you could do it with, they had a special tool, I think it's called a bow saw or something like that. So then this, to me, and I think to many people, this is sort of the origin of the chaise lounge, or the day bed, or a sofa, right? These people are sitting, on a similar thing. He's got his elbow on like a bolster type pillow that we still see today. So a lot of, this guy's got like, he's got like three cushions here that he's lounging on. So this is examples of decorative objects. I think these are beautiful. So I think we've probably seen these. These are, the style of pottery is like a reversal of each other. So we have pottery painted with scenes of life, really fascinating. This is a battle, obviously, and this is black painted pottery. And then this is red painted pottery. So what's going on here in the red painted pottery was that they're just painting the negative areas black, and they leave the other, the red areas open, and then they fire it. And then this is done the opposite way, where they paint the positive areas and they leave the orange areas as are the negative space. And then every other space, then they decorate it. We've got the wave patterns, but I love how they did the wave patterns, positive and negative. And then they've got Greek key. And then here, I'm not sure what I'm seeing. Maybe it's like a lotus here. Rosettes. This looks like a little bit of guilloche. This is, what are we looking at here? Is this lotus? Palmette? It's probably a palmette. Anyway, really cool. I mean, look at his helmet. Even his helmet has fret, Greek key on it. He's got some sort of, costume on where it's got Greek key and different. And then look, this guy's dead, just laying down here. Okay, so then the Romans just take over everything. The Roman Empire, 600 BCE to 600 CE, lasted for a really long time. They had a lot of power. They basically just conquered everything. Um, and they would conquer areas with a strong military, then they would take over them, and then they were able to conquer more. And then a lot of wealth was created. Um, and there was, a degree of long-term stability and a lot of technological advancements. So you're able to harness all that brain power. So during the Roman Empire, there was a lot of advances in building. There had been, understanding of how to handle water, how to even create like flushing toilets and things like that. Like not the flushing toilets that we're used to, but the way of creating, indoor bathrooms. But Romans took that, even further, and they had so many contributions to like infrastructure and improvements, and they came up with concrete. So they were able to, build something like this. This is a Roman aqueduct, and then this is a relief carving. This is concrete. Um, and there's discussion about why the concrete was so good. And there's a degree or a percentage of volcanic ash in that concrete, which seemingly makes it just really, really strong. And whatever chemical reaction needs to happen really happened well. Um, so what was in it was volcanic ash, loose stones, water, and lime. Um, More load could be carried, like domes and vaults. And then they could have aquifers, they could have hot water, cold water. Um, and so a lot of technological advances. And they could build large buildings because they had access and understanding of cranes. Um, and so the style of the columns goes a little bit smaller, a little bit thinner. And so these are sort of examples of Tuscan and then composite orders. You don't really see them that often. You really see a lot more of the Greek in the Greek revival or neoclassical. Um, and then affluent households, because of the water, you could have larger homes. And then, so here's the Pantheon, which was AD 128. So it's the largest unreinforced concrete structure. And what I mean by unreinforced, it's like it doesn't have like an underlying structure, whereas now we use things like steel or rebar. Um, it doesn't have it. Um, and like I said, it had the recipe has that special mix of volcanic ash and lime, which is very durable. And this is what it looks like, on the inside, which is amazing. Um, and the Colosseum in Rome. This is amazing to me that this was finished in 10 years. I mean, this is huge. And then obviously we notice its similarity to modern stadiums. Um, and there's also a video here that you guys can look at. Um, then in Pompeii, 79 AD, there was a horrible volcanic explosion. So Pompeii and Herculaneum, south of Naples. So what happened was it was just a huge, huge volcano that erupted. And what happened was all of that ash and lava dropped, very quickly on the surrounding areas, and it perfectly preserved the daily life of what was going on at the time. So it preserved homes, it preserved, so just it basically added and there's, obviously something to that volcanic ash. So it basically added like a shell, around all of these things to preserve it. Um, and the excavation began in the 15th and 16th centuries. And so here's some images of those um, preserved bodies and how they were found when it was excavated. But then here's also kind of a row house, and this is called the trellis house. I think this image actually is in the book. And so it's like a 2-story multifamily, and then with bricks and super simple columns here. And then this is a villa. So this is how the villa looked, and it was preserved. So it's brightly colored here, and then with these gorgeous paintings on the walls. And then, so some Roman furniture, again, some stools. So this is a curule stool. We're going to see this again and again. So this might have been made of, well, most likely it was made of wood. And then this one I found on First Dibs, and I found it like last year. So this is an iron stool for $3,000. It was sort of made, and it looks like leaves, of some type, wrapped. And then, this would have had probably some sort of upholstery on it. And then it looks like, there's just fringe. And then there was actually wicker made in Rome that they excavated when they excavated Pompeii, which I think is fascinating. So also Roman thronos, so lion's paws with a little footstool. And then there's images of like very small 3-legged tables. And, this could very well have been made of metal. This bed frame is made of metal. This also looks like a metal frame. So same as those day beds, those clines. This is very similar to that Greek cline. I don't know if you've ever watched, it's kind of a long time ago, this show on HBO is called Rome, and it's really kind of interesting. You see a lot of these furniture pieces. It's just kind of it's a good show, but it's shows a lot of these kind of pieces. And, not a lot of, especially in that show, because it shows like all the like the nobles, but nobody eats at a table. You lounge and you eat. So and so sleeping also done on that piece of furniture. And then here's some motifs. So again, the geometric abstracted wave patterns, fret or Greek key, the egg and dart. So here's the egg and dart, egg, dart, egg, dart, egg, dart. Now, if you haven't seen the egg and the dart, you're going to see it everywhere now. But then, wave patterns, leaf patterns, this kind of looks like a palmette to me, but then there's kind of circling leaves. Then this is also very popular on building facades and interiors as well, like crown molding. This is called dental, because they look like teeth. I actually don't know if dentile is from teeth, but that's how I think of it. And then these are the Corinthian columns with the leaves here at the top. And then they're using the dental molding right here below the cornice and then up here on the pediment. Oh, we made it all the way through. It's amazing. I think we just went like 4,000 years. Do you guys have any questions? What I really want you to take away is the chairs, the stools, the chests, starting to think about architectural parts and pieces and how sometimes it's interchangeable, whether you're talking about furniture, whether you're talking about a building. And that's why I like to bring in the buildings too, so that we can kind of learn that way. The Klizmos chair, the X-base stools, the difference between a side chair and armchair. And we're gonna do more with this here. And then I'll turn on tonight, I'll turn on the readings. I want you to read Vitruvius. There's a couple readings. He's amazing. I don't know if you've read him before. It's not super easy to get through just because it's, old, but I think it's really interesting once you start getting into it and like sort of understanding what they're doing. And then, so I'll turn all that on for next week so that you know what to do. Do you have any questions? Okay. If you're interested, you should go read and Google more of the Egyptian and Greek. There's the whole world out there. Okay, well, I'll see you or talk to you, this week on Canvas after you read the articles, okay? Okay. All right, good night, you guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Bye.